14 wolves were about to rewrite the laws of physics, not through strength or numbers, but by changing how water itself flows through stone. Rivers that had carved the same destructive path for 70 years were about to shift course. Mountains would stabilize. Forests would return from extinction. All because someone made a decision that every rancher, every local politician, and half the scientific community called ecological suicide. Join Nature Systems as we uncover how predators nobody wanted became the architects of one of Earth's most dramatic landscape transformations. Let's begin. Yellowstone National Park, 1926. The last wolf dies in a government trap. Rangers celebrated. Ranchers celebrated. The problem was solved. 70 years later, the rivers were dying. Streams that had carved stable channels for thousands of years were tearing themselves apart. Riverbanks collapsed into torrents during spring runoff. Entire valleys flooded each spring, then dried to barren gravel by summer. Water temperatures spiked until they exceeded what cold water species could tolerate. Fish populations crashed. Erosion accelerated every year, carving deeper, wider, faster through unprotected soil. Scientists watching the data realized something terrifying. Yellowstone's river system was approaching irreversible collapse within a single human lifetime. The trigger? 1926, when the last wolf was eliminated. Without predators, elk exploded from a few thousand to 20,000 animals within decades. They grazed without fear, without the constant movement that had defined their behavior for millennia. Herds clustered in riverside valleys where the feeding was richest and easiest. Young trees that sprouted near water were devoured before reaching knee height. Willows vanished entirely from valley floors. Aspens died without producing successors. When the trees disappeared, the riverbanks lost their roots, the only biological infrastructure holding soil against spring floods. But why couldn't anyone stop it? Ecologists tried everything. They planted thousands of willow saplings protected by individual cages. Elk found ways to strip them within days. They built larger protective fences. Costs became astronomical and impossible to scale. They culled elk herds through controlled hunts. Populations rebounded within months, replacing losses faster than managers could remove them. 70 years of interventions, millions of dollars spent. The degradation only accelerated. By 1990, some scientists were privately admitting the ecosystem had crossed a point of no return. The damage was too deep, too systemic. Then conservation biologists proposed something most considered career suicide. Bring back the wolves. The reaction was immediate and ferocious. Ranchers predicted livestock massacres across the region. Hunters feared elk populations would vanish, destroying a hunting economy worth millions. Politicians called it government declaring war on rural America. Even many ecologists were deeply skeptical. How could predators that had been extinct for 70 years possibly fix rivers? The mechanism seemed absurd. The politics were toxic. And the numbers were statistically meaningless. 14 wolves in 8,000 square kilometers of wilderness. Could 14 animals really reverse 7 decades of ecological collapse? Or would this expensive gamble become the punchline that killed the rewilding movement forever? If this failed, it wouldn't just embarrass federal wildlife managers. It would destroy any chance of restoring apex predators anywhere in North America for the next 50 years. Careers would end. Entire departments would be defunded. Congressional hearings would dissect every decision, and Yellowstone's rivers would keep dying, now with proof that even the most radical interventions couldn't save them. A handful of biologists believed in trophic cascade theory. Apex predators don't just reduce prey numbers, they reshape entire ecosystems through the ecology of fear. Wolves wouldn't just hunt elk. They would restore ancient patterns of vigilance and movement, pushing herds away from riverside zones where escape routes didn't exist. The lead researchers knew what they were risking. If wolves failed to establish territories or migrated seeking easier prey, the experiment would become a national embarrassment. Federal conservation funding would face cuts. Their careers would end in congressional hearings. One scientist later admitted, "We were betting everything on 14 animals we'd never even seen hunt." 1995. January. A convoy arrives carrying 14 Canadian gray wolves. The political firestorm was already raging. Congress threatened budget cuts. Ranchers organized protests. Newspapers called it the most reckless ecological gamble in American history. The stakes, $14 million, $1 million per wolf. If half died in the first year, which many expected, the rewilding movement would face a crisis from which it might never recover. But federal managers had committed. Would nature remember what humans had erased? If you want to see how controversial experiments become reality, subscribe so you don't miss these stories. January 21st. Gates open. 14 wolves step into snow, vanish into wilderness. For months, only occasional sightings confirmed they were alive. Whether they were hunting, breeding, changing anything, nobody knew. 7 months in, nothing visible had changed. Elk massive. Rivers eroding. Critics prepared editorials. Biologists who'd staked careers watched reputations crumble. Late 95, a park ranger noticed something that made her call the research team immediately. Elk were behaving fundamentally differently. Herds that had grazed in the same riverside meadows for decades were moving constantly now. They maintained vigilance, with sentries watching in all directions. And most critically, they were abandoning exposed riverbanks where they'd fed for 70 years, retreating to higher ground where escape routes existed. The wolves weren't just hunting elk. They were teaching 20,000 animals to remember terror their species hadn't experienced in 3 generations. Riverside zones became predator territory. The most productive feeding areas became the most dangerous. And in that abandoned space, with elk maintaining distance from water's edge, something began that would validate every risk. Willow saplings sprouted in spring '96. With elk herds staying on higher ground, the willows survived their first summer. By year 2, waist height. By year 4, dense thickets had returned to valley floors that hadn't seen woody vegetation in living memory. Aspen groves sprouted from ancient root systems that had waited underground for 7 decades. Yellowstone waited to see if this gamble would become the punchline or proof that the rejected predator was the keystone holding everything together. But the real transformation wasn't in forests. It was at water's edge, where the landscape's fundamental physics were about to shift. 2001, 6 years after wolves arrived. Researchers surveying riverside zones made a discovery prompting emergency meetings. Beavers, not stragglers, entire colonies. Dozens of family groups drawn by willow bark that hadn't existed in Yellowstone for 3 generations. The beavers built dams. Within 2 years, over 50 active complexes appeared across valleys that had been bare eroding channels a decade before. Because when you slow water, you reshape the fundamental physics of how rivers move. Under those ponds, something remarkable was happening. 14 wolves were about to literally change the course of flowing water. Beaver dams trapped sediment. Hundreds of tons that had torn down rivers for 70 years stopped. Stream banks stabilized as roots took hold. Erosion reversed. Banks actually building outward rather than retreating. New channels formed through wetland complexes. Meanders that had widened into floodplains began narrowing into stable waterways. By 2005, geomorphologists saw patterns violating assumptions. Channels that should take centuries moved in years. Temperatures dropped. Trout exploded. Some tributaries up 300%. The wolves had moved the rivers. Not metaphorically, literally. Streams carving destructive paths since the 30s flowed through different valleys. Physics unchanged. Geology unchanged. But biological architecture, willows, beavers, wolves, rewrote where water could go. 2010. 15 years after 14 wolves stepped into snow. Survey data was due. Biologists who'd risked careers gathered to compile results. Some couldn't sleep, knowing their legacies depended on numbers about to be released. Before we reveal measurements that would vindicate or destroy trophic cascade theory, if you're finding this mind-blowing, hit subscribe to Nature Systems. We uncover breakthroughs like this weekly. Now, the moment defining a generation, first data from riverside zones, researchers silent, Willow height where wolves hunted, up 500%. Beaver colonies, 0 to 112 active dams. Songbird diversity, up 76%. Riverbank erosion, reduced by magnitudes unseen since 1938. River channel data. Stream widths narrowed 40%. Vegetative cover near 0 to 60%. Water temperatures dropped degrees that should have taken geological timescales. Numbers weren't just good, they rewrote textbooks. Geomorphologists stared at imagery showing rivers that literally changed course. Not from floods, but from wolves teaching elk to fear willows. Today, over 500 wolves inhabit Yellowstone. The park is a living laboratory for trophic cascade theory, proof that ecosystems are intricate webs where every thread matters. Remove the apex predator, rivers tear apart. Restore it. Nature rebuilds channels, forests, food webs in ways taking decades to understand. The 14 wolves of '95 proved sometimes the most radical solution is trusting evolution over human engineering. They showed fear can be more powerful than force. Invisible connections matter more than obvious ones. And rivers remember predators even separated by 70 years. If this changed how you see predators, drop a comment. Subscribe to Nature Systems for more stories where impossible solutions become inevitable.